Welcome everybody. This is the January 19th, 2021 meeting of the Sustainability Commission. And 5:34 p.m. And I believe that we have everybody. So I will turn it over to Roy Clark, our chair.
Thank you. I'd like to formally call to order the January 19th meeting of the Palm Springs Sustainability Commission. Patrick, would you take the roll call, please?
I sure will. Chair Clark.
Here.
Vice Chair McCann.
Here.
Commissioner Baker.
Present.
Commissioner Flanagan.
Here.
Commissioner Friedman.
Here.
Butterman.
Here.
Commissioner Garrett is absent. Commissioner Gauthier.
I'm here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Welcome. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome the commissioners, staff member, and I believe we have one visitor. There will be time for public comments later in the meeting. Please keep your microphones muted during the meeting and then raise your hand to speak at the appropriate time. And then, of course, unmute your microphones. Please do not use the chat feature in Zoom. The next item on the agenda is acceptance of the agenda. It was emailed and posted last Thursday, January 14th. Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion to accept.
Thank you, Rob. Second,
Second.
Luslani.
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay. All in favor of accepting the agenda, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The agenda has been accepted. The next item then is staff comments. Manager Tallarico will present them, and a number of them have been covered in a memo that he included with the agenda packet. Patrick.
Thank you, Roy. So I did just want to highlight a couple of things on memo, and actually one thing that I omitted from the memo. So one is with regard to the council meeting agenda items. I mentioned a couple of things that were kind of on our radar with regard to the EV permitting second reading, and then the EV charging contract approval, which will, fingers crossed, go forward at the January 28th meeting. But there have been a couple of items on the planning agenda that have been interesting, and one in particular that came up was the discussion about the downtown development that will go where the Virgin Hotel was planned. And it is now going to be a luxury condo development. And so one of the conditions of the specific plan for that area is that projects exceed the state mandated requirements for things like energy code. So, Commissioner Friedman can maybe give us a little bit more detail on it, but that conversation did not really quite go as planned. And so I don't think that the planning folks really conveyed the level of requirement that is needed for that development project. And so, David, did you want to say a little bit more about that?
Sure. So just to step back, this was a big issue in 2016 when the downtown plan, for reasons that we all know, was being seriously revised and was quite controversial. And so one of the changes, among other things, cutting that project down substantially, reducing the massing, was to request that the project comply with the policy the city had adopted back in 2012 called Green Building Program. And this was prior to my time in Palm Springs, but I picked it up when I got here and got involved. So this was something that CVAG did for all of the Valley cities. They had gotten a grant from Edison, and it's essentially kind of a reach code-ish sort of checklist intended to be voluntary, and that's part of the term. And it was a guide for if you want to go beyond code, these are things you could do. But for that project, it was embedded as a requirement that the project exceed the state standards. And the complication, which is why, Patrick, I'm happy to meet with you and planning and building to discuss this, is that it refers to something called tree level. And it's not been updated, and Katie Barrow said they would not update it. But essentially, the requirement for the level is that it be at least 15% above state requirements, and that's going to need some discussion with the folks from Grit and building and planning. And a lot of it will depend on when the building permit is pulled, because the energy code will change effective January 1, 2023, when the what we're calling the 2222 code, it will be approved by the Energy Commission. And this is the memo, I'll talk about that later, probably over the summer. But then there's roughly a year and a half lead time for all the manuals and things to be written. So one of the alternatives that could be discussed is if the building permit is pulled in 2022, that the project essentially follows the 2022 energy code, which won't go into effect till 2023. And you could sort of do a rough estimate that maybe that's 15%. But that's part of the discussions that we really should be having now, and not wait until the building permit is pulled, because I just don't think that either planning or building, again, this is historical. I had all the information in my files. I'm just not sure that they were aware of it. And so it was not brought to council's attention until I decided that it really should be, reminded of council.
So we will definitely be following up on that, but it also just speaks to the need, as we have discussed in the past, of sustainability being more engaged with some of the larger, more significant projects that are going forward through both building and planning. So, and we did talk a little bit about that with the management team. So again, I think that as agendas get developed, we'll certainly have things on our radar, but it's important to pay attention to a lot of the other things that get onto the agenda as well. So thank you for paying attention to that, Commissioner Friedman, and we will definitely have some follow-up conversations about that.
All right, thank you.
The only other thing I wanted to mention, give you a quick update on, was the program coordinator position. And so I have one more person to interview for that position, but we are very close to making a decision and anticipate that by the end of the week. So I was hoping we could announce somebody tonight, but we're not quite done with that process. And should that process go forward and be finalized this week, we would probably look at that person starting late February. So probably, and I think that's it, other than what's in there. And I wasn't sure if people wanted to have a further discussion about the tree planting and inventory section, which I put into the, just share my screen. I put into the memo the Tree Cities USA standards. I know that this was suggested or this was raised at the last meeting, and we were talking about it, but I don't know that we really had any information about what the standards are. So I included those in there, and so I'm happy to answer any questions you've got about that to the extent I know anything about this program. But again, I think that Commissioner Garrett had brought this up, and she is not here tonight, so we may want to just hold that conversation until the next. Any other questions about anything else in our little update memo?
Patrick, anything new on the GHG inventory? I know it's a sensitive topic, but.
No, I have nothing new to report on that front, but I am going to reach out to them this week.
All right, thanks. We'll follow up at the Green Building Solar Committee meeting next month.
Yep.
I have a question, Patrick.
Yes.
So in the downtown construction of that building that's going to be converted from a hotel to luxury condos,
Yes.
is there any flexibility or creativity in the parking formulas? I know that sometimes they ascribe there's a formula with X number of parking spaces per bedroom per unit. It's really complex, and you can somehow get creative and have incentives for parking space for car share or for fewer parking spaces, which reduces some of the costs. Is that on the table?
I can ask. I don't exactly know where they are in that process, so I don't know if all of that was part of the approved package.
Yeah,
Okay.
that did come up, and it's parked, but it's parked via the downtown garage. So there's nothing in the specific plan, because it's always part of because that whole package is part of the parking, the whole get downtown garage is part of that. It was briefly mentioned that whatever parking, I think Commissioner Flanagan, to answer your questions, there's nothing regrettably innovative about that. It is what it is, and it's nothing different than the existing standards. And they said that any requirements were satisfied via the garage. Grit may have some reserved spaces, in the garage, and that's probably, I think, what's there. It is covered in the staff report. But that's the basics.
That's the way that the Kimpton handled it as well. I think they've got some reserved spots in the.
But there's a big distinction between staying in the hotel and accessing your car, and living in a high luxury condo and getting to your car, I would imagine, more often than someone staying in a hotel for a few days. I wouldn't want to have to go down into that basement every time I got my car in the parking lot to go to work, for instance, in the morning.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact solution is. I know that it's a big discussion issue in Portland, and I've seen some ongoing to the reducing number of car spaces. But that's a little different story, and it's very contentious, especially when you're associating with private condominiums. One of the things they did do is they delinked it. So they sold the parking spaces separately from the condominiums. So allowed somebody to buy a condo with no spaces or with 2 spaces. It kind of delinking them allows a little bit of flexibility that kind of can reward people without cars, but it still provides enough spaces. But other than that, I can't really help you much.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Back to you, Roy.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to public comments. This time is for members of the public to address the Sustainability Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. The Commission values your comments, but pursuant to the Brown Act, cannot take action on items not listed on the agenda. 3 minutes are assigned for each speaker. Do we have anybody with public comments tonight? It appears no, so now we'll move on. We have no presentations. The next item is meeting minutes for the December 15th Commission meeting. The minutes were emailed and posted last Thursday. And is there a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll move.
Thank you, Jim.
Carl, second.
Who is that?
Carl.
Carl, okay. Any discussion of the minutes? If not, all in favor of accepting the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
Abstain.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, next item is old business. The first item is under old business is fees at Burstow parking structure. Commissioner Flanagan.
Okay, let's see. Since the last time we spoke, and we kind of talked about this a little bit in our energy subcommittee meeting, but I finally was able to get through the general plan, and I did locate the circulation element, which is section 4 of the old general plan. And I'm sorry this didn't come to my attention sooner, but there is a section there that deals with parking facilities. And as I understand it, the circulation element is going to be addressed. And specifically, there was an action item under goal CR8 that just said, let's see, it was CR 8.11. And it says, ensure that areas where parking time limitations are instituted, the time frame allows for a combination of dining and shopping. And then it also goes on to say, a study to determine if on-street parking in prime areas within parking structures should be available only on a pay basis should be explored. So that, originally I was interested in just looking at fees at Baristo, and then we kind of switched to modifying the general plan. And then something is in there that talks about this. So I just came up with something that was a little bit more, instead of just suggesting a study, a little bit more progressive about being a little more forward about implementing a plan. So I came up with some wording for that, and I'll read it if I have a second.
Yeah, please.
Let me find what I have here. And this is because when talking to Councilmember Woods, he said I should come up with a policy statement and a couple of action goals to put on the general plan. And what I was envisioning is we would give this to the general plan folks with our recommendation, and they would do the wording, because as I've seen, some of the wording discussions can be quite lengthy with the general plan folks, and I wouldn't propose to be able to come up with the perfect language. But I said for my policy statement, just to utilize parking fees and on-demand pricing to promote vehicle turnover and increase parking availability in the downtown corridor, while helping to encourage carbon-free reduced alternative transportations, such as walking, bicycles, and rideshare. And under the actions, I created 2 actions. The first one is create a plan to identify parking availability in the downtown core and proximity to restaurants and merchants, and the best locations to implement fee-based parking. And then 2, develop a timeline and estimates of revenue and expenses necessary to implement fee-based parking. So that's kind of my proposal. And I'm wondering if you have any questions.
What,
Yeah, Alani, I guess.
yeah, so could you be clear about what was changed on that, or what were you looking at specifically to make an adjustment to?
Well, so the existing one there, it just, all it really says is that we should do a study to investigate fee-based parking. So all I'm doing is I'm adding a little more detail, saying we should look at demand pricing, we should look at how that works with vehicle turnover and parking availability, and how this would affect carbon-free alternatives such as walking, biking, and rideshare. So I'm just adding a little bit more detail to it, kind of hopefully to nudge them along. And I'm also suggesting we do a timeline and estimates of looking at revenue and expenses. So just kind of adding more detail. I don't think it's a major change. It seems to be the direction I wanted to go, but since it'd been sitting idle for 7 years and no one's done anything, I mean, maybe this would help. I don't know.
So is the next step then to send it to the general plan committee, or would you like to have some more discussion in the commission?
Would I like to have some more what from the commission?
Should there be any more discussion?
I don't know. Is this something that we would vote that as a sustainability commission recommendation, or can we just send it over and say the commission's generally favorable for this?
I guess the only thing I'd suggest, if there's no more discussion tonight, is that you send the wording to Patrick that can be sent out with the minutes, so that we'll all have a chance to look at it more closely. And then,
okay, this is the same wording as I sent you, Patrick, a couple of days ago. Did you get that?
I think I did, yes.
Yeah, it is.
Does it appear in our packet?
Does not.
no,
Okay, so the rest of us haven't seen it.
I'll
So
send it.
I think that's a good idea, Roy.
yeah, just give us a chance to look at it more closely, and then we can just keep it on the agenda for old business at the next meeting.
Instead of just saying that we did.
Wait, Patrick, we're also going to talk a little bit about what's the time frame for general plan recommendations, and didn't we talk about that at the Energy Committee? Or
We did talk about that a little bit. I said I was going to check to see what their status was, because they had been doing more outreach, basically. And it's my understanding that they are still doing it's not neighborhood level, it's district level meetings. So they are participating in some of the district level meetings that are happening. And I know that there was one coming up here. So they're still doing outreach. So they haven't moved forward with the other sections yet. So I think we would be fine to do that next month.
okay,
Because this is not part of the big pie in the sky vision stuff. It's really down in the circulation element itself.
I was also going to point out that last time we met, I think Commissioner Garrett talked a little bit about how we needed to have parking districts to resolve deficiencies. And there's actually a section policy there, CR 8.4, that says we should evaluate parking districts to resolve deficiencies. So that kind of addresses what she was asking for last time, and it's existing. So that's it for me. And I guess I'd like to vote on this next go round. So you can send that out with the next package. Thank you, Patrick.
And we'll put it on the agenda.
And we
Okay.
will, Jim, we can just have any final tweaking at the committee meeting in 2 weeks. And I may want to just tie it to the visions and priority statement that we had approved and planning is approved, because I think that just sort of, anchors it in the, obviously council is still discussing that, but I think it anchors it in our previous action for, over the summer. So
Yeah, I would appreciate that, David. I think you've got some experience in that stuff. So
Patrick will put it in the minutes, and then I can tweak it, and then I'll include it, Patrick, for the committee meeting, and we'll sort of, vote it out from there.
Okay.
Sounds like a
Thank
good.
you.
Okay. There's nothing else on the parking. The next item under old business is sustainability scholarship status and feedback. Patrick?
So I am pleased to report that we have about $10,000 reserved so far for projects that people have applied for. Some of those have already been processed, and so I've gotten a few checks that have been issued already. I put together in your packet, and I'll share this so that we can talk a little bit about it some more, a little summary update. And so, see here. So even since this was done, we've had some more applications and some more interest. So we're at about $10,000 reserved. Most of it is under sustainability funds and just a little bit under recycling so far. The 3 that I've processed so far are here at the top. So we had an electric leaf blower purchase, an Energy Star washer for a dry cleaner, and then an instant hot water system for an office building. So so those 3 were processed. And then these other ones were just sort of waiting on implementation. So the Inn at Palm Springs is doing some an EV charger. DA Computer is installing a water heater. County Bagel is doing some recycling bins, and then another leaf blower purchase, another EV charging station, leaf blower. So again, most things have been pretty straightforward requests. I've been surprised by the number of hot water heaters, but apparently everybody needs to replace those right now. So then there were a few things that seemed that I wanted to vet with you all and just get your feedback on this a little bit. So the first one that we got a request for an electric leaf blower purchase, which generally is a good thing. I mean, the more that are out there, the better. This person wanted to buy it so that it would help speed up their cleaning process at houses. And they do cleaning of patios and things like that. And I did probe a little bit more as to what they were using now. They're not using a gas power blower now. They're actually hosing down places. So I thought, at least for this one, it seemed to make sense to probably use an electric leaf blower as opposed to using water to hose down spaces. But again, I wanted to get your thoughts about that, because we've had a couple of other requests for leaf blowers, again, that aren't necessarily replacing gas leaf blowers, but are being used for cleaning purposes. The same goes for Lulus. They also want to use it to clean their patio area, which again, I think would replace some hosing down and perhaps the use of a gas powered unit. And then there was a third one that was a similar request that I think came in after this list was put together. But I wanted to get your feedback on whether or not to approve electric leaf blowers that aren't necessarily replacing gas leaf blowers. So I just wanted to kind of get some feedback and thoughts on that.
I think it's great. I think it's a completely appropriate use for this money. It's better than just replacing a gas one. I mean, they're actually upping their ante quite a bit as far as the business goes. And I wish other businesses would take a look at this. It's really brilliant.
I find myself in violent agreement with Lonnie. I totally agree.
I love violent agreement.
Good.
Just a question about the cost of that one for all seasons cleaning, $200. Did they specify the type that they're looking at? Would it be a corded one?
I think it's either a corded one or a pretty low end battery powered one. And so I might recommend that they get a little bit higher powered unit, just because if they get one and it's disappointing, then it's usually a worse scenario than if they just got a better one. So,
But it is good that they're doing that.
yeah, I don't think that they use it a lot, so so they might not have a lot of experience with it.
It would seem there's a big difference between.
That they might get something a little more, that'll last more than a month.
Right, exactly.
Great, yeah.
Jim?
I was just saying, it seems like the $700 ones are more for gardeners, whereas the $200 ones are more for internal and household use, which was kind of making me question why Lulu's is buying an outdoor gardener one for a restaurant, but it would seem that they would be able to use the same one as an indoor one, but I'm not sure what they're thinking.
I certainly,
Right.
because that Lulu patio is not that large, and if you blew it down once a day, that's maybe 10 minutes
Yeah.
of use.
I was actually going to suggest that they might want to downgrade a little bit, but they also mentioned doing the back lot, because that's their parking lot in the back of their building too. So they do a little bit more than their patio. So I'll follow up with them, but it's good to know that we are supportive of that. And my part of the feeling was the more that are out there, the more that people are seeing people using them, the better. All right. Next one was an interesting one because it's actually a doctor's office, and they would like to switch to biodegradable gloves from regular latex gloves. And these gloves, he sent me the spec sheet for them, and they are actually ASTM certified. They are not compostable, so they are just biodegradable and they are tested for landfill biodegradation. So they are do have the ASTM, they meet the ASTM standard. But I just wanted to kind of run it past you because although there's not really a reusable alternative here. So it is kind of an incremental better step in my opinion. So, but anyway, I just wanted to run it by you and see if you kind of felt the same way. It's not like, again, it's not necessarily the best answer, but again, it's this incremental improvement idea. And I sort of equated it with like if somebody wanted to move away from plastic or styrofoam to a compostable foodware, that even though we don't process it as, even though we don't really compost it, it's better than necessarily maybe having some of the plastic stuff. So I wanted to throw that out there and get your feedback on the biodegradable gloves. I stumped you.
Lonnie had a comment. She had her hand up.
Oh, sorry.
You. That's a lot for gloves, number one, but we might learn something about this. And if they could present some data that, I mean, I would be very interested in what it is that they're looking at So if they could present something like that, let's take a look at it. Maybe, they've got something here. I don't think so, though. And I think it's going to be a waste of money ultimately. But hey, is that the name of this Reset Ketamine? Are they a veterinary outfit or what?
No, I don't think it's veterinary. But I'm not,
Ketamine is used in veterinary clinics.
oh, is it? Okay.
Not that I don't hold that against them. Having
So
just gotten cats. But could they supply us with some information that they use?
Yeah, I've got info. I can share it with the group.
Yeah, that would be great. That's a minimal sort of thing.
Okay. I'll send it around to folks.
I'd like to get it before the next meeting in this particular.
Yeah. No, I'll send it out right after. Because I'd love to get your feedback sooner rather than later.
Along the same lines, just jumping up to Postal Palm Springs and the biodegradable peanuts, it might be interesting to learn something about what they're doing with them and, what the cycle will be for them as well.
So the nice thing about that material is that's the stuff when you get it, you can put it down the drain.
Okay.
You can put water on it and it disappears. It's a starch-based material, so it just basically disintegrates. So those are awesome. Biodegradable is not so much. So, but yeah, I think that one of the things that from that effort that I'm going to task our new person with is to develop like little mini case studies for these. To say, we spent this much money, here's what we did, here's the environmental benefit to it, that kind of thing.
That'd be great.
The next thing was a UV disinfecting equipment. And so I just wanted to kind of run this past you. So this is sort of for COVID issues. So there's a cleaning company that would like to purchase a UV disinfecting light. It's like it's not a wand, but it's a piece of equipment that's portable that they bring around to houses as they clean them, they disinfect them as well. And so we haven't really talked much about kind of indoor air quality or indoor environments like that, but it seemed like it was probably appropriate, but I just wanted to kind of run it by you, see if you had any questions or concerns about it.
Again, I would like to see.
Go ahead, Lonnie.
Information on it.
Yeah.
Does the county have something on that? I mean, it's.
Well, I know it's been touted earlier in the COVID process. It was touted pretty widely that people are going to start using these UV equipment to disinfect. And they were going to actually install them in air ducts. So I believe that they have a proven track record for reducing virus loads. So I do think it's a legitimate piece of equipment. David, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess my thought on all of these is just sort of a trying to come up with a principle of which ones made the most sense. Is that where I think that we get the most bang for a buck is that whatever business has a process and they want to come up with a more, I'd say, efficient and less resource intensive process. And so that's going to cover things like, I think that covers things like leaf blowers instead of water, washing down with water and some of these other things where they already are doing it. This one and the next one I had a little bit more concern about because of things like it didn't seem to be changing a process maybe for the disinfecting equipment if they're doing this instead of washing things down with water. That would obviously be a more efficient use of water. But I couldn't really, just because I'm not all that familiar with it. Is this something that they are already doing or they want to do this and they, it's not a process that they're using already in their cleaning service? So
they have used it apparently somewhat to date, but they want a better unit. Because again, like we were saying before, with the leaf blowers, I don't think they got a very good unit. So they go through them a little faster. So I think they want a better unit. But the other thing to me that strikes me is that they are likely using it instead of, or maybe to minimize their use of chlorinated products. So
Okay.
we're using less toxic chemicals and using this process as a way to disinfect as opposed to the other.
And that, thank you, Patrick, because that fits into my sort of, theory, as I said, is something that uses less of something bad, or and we should be encouraging those. So if they would be, using this as opposed to Clorox or something like that, then I think that fits within. I think that fits within what we're trying to achieve here. So that point moves the dial for me on that one.
Yeah.
I don't know about.
Any other questions about that one?
You're still talking about the UV disinfecting equipment?
Yes. Okay.
I think it's quite possible, on the other hand, that we're just paying for something that actually there are lots of other things that can be used much less expensively without electricity, like 70% alcohol or soap. We don't really know this. I think we don't know what we're doing in this area. And I'm not sure that this is really what we are. I mean, isn't this in part why you're asking these questions, Patrick? Because it's a little bit off. In fact, this medical waste sharps containers, red bags.
Yeah, I'll get to that one in a minute. Yeah. Yeah, so that's sort of why I'm raising some of these things.
Funky. It's really funky for a medical group to be asking for money from the city to buy sharps containers.
Right. So this one in particular, I was actually going to reject outright, mostly because this seems like a standard part of their doing business. And it's not meeting some new standard. It's not meeting the new organics requirements. It's not really doing anything that's really beyond their current practice. So I think that's probably what you were getting at, Lonnie, is that it's, they're a medical business, so they should be doing this anyway.
Yeah, I think it's a little fishy. You know what? I wouldn't mind. There's some of these I'm kind of interested in. I would be really interested in finding out what these, we don't call it standard of care in this, but some of the standards are for, like, cleaning folks that would come in, say, after a COVID patient was, at home for 2 weeks, or, like this. Well, I can't wait till somebody can explain this split AC system. I hope David can fill me in on that. And this UV disinfecting equipment. I would like to take a little look at that, if you could give me a week.
Mhm.
And, we might find something interesting on it. But
Sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a couple of these things around to everybody. I'll send the biodegradable gloves and the UV disinfecting piece around to everybody. And I can maybe do it for one of the other ones here too. But and if you could just kind of take a week and think about it and let me know if you've got questions or concerns, because I would like to turn these things around pretty quickly.
yes.
When they ask for them. So just so either I can reserve the money or not. So, okay, so I'll send those two things around. I think any other comments about the medical waste sharps containers piece?
I agree with Commissioner Miller. I don't think that's appropriate. So that one, I wouldn't need more information on that. I think that's something they have to do, and I would not, that's one that I'd be comfortable with a rejection on.
Right. Okay. And so the next one is energy efficient landscape lighting. So this is an organization that wants to convert over to all LED lighting and save energy. I did ask them if they were in compliance with our lighting requirements, and they didn't have uplighting, and they said everything was super low voltage and very much in compliance. So that was really my primary concern with that one, but otherwise it seems like it would be a good thing for them to reduce their energy use for landscape lighting.
Patrick, this is a really good, there's a lot of stuff going on under the energy code for new construction, but somebody wants to voluntarily do it. I think this is absolutely within our, our objectives.
And Patrick, can I add? I'm not that excited about spending money on outdoor lighting, but I do like the idea of spending money to support controllers that turn lights like 4 hours after dusk off. And I think and paying for those would be a great idea to learn about. So we might ask him to include something like that.
Yeah, I could definitely do that.
That's a good suggestion.
And that's kind of along the lines of what you'd like to do with the new person, Patrick. If that person learns more about some of these projects, we can get the word out and others may follow.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Patrick, do we just not have budget numbers on these three?
So I don't actually, let me just look. The UV, where'd that go? No, I don't have the one for the UV disinfectant. The medical waste, I don't have one for that either. And then the energy efficiency lighting, let me see if I've got that. Don't have a number for that either. So that would be one where I could totally go back to them and say, hey, we'd like for you to include those controllers and tell me what the price is. Yeah, for those three, I did not have any price estimates yet. Okay, the last one was the split AC system. So this was a request from a company because they don't have an AC system that does both cooling and heating, and they wanted a system that did both. And it sounded as if they were going to add it and not take the other one away. And I can clarify that. But and actually I can share, share.
What is it?
So I'm going to show you. So it's one of these units that is a little, it has a little unit inside the building, and then it has a little compact unit outside the building. And they're pretty much ductless, so you just stick it on the wall and it just goes through the wall, and that's your AC and heating system for that.
It's a heat pump.
Yeah.
They work in separate rooms.
Yeah.
And this is something that the Energy Commission is spending a lot of time on to encourage, and probably will be embedded in the new code, at least for some construction, is that instead of having a boiler and an AC, you have one unit and there's a little valve and it just sort of turns it around, and the heat becomes you can either heat or cool, and that's what we're going to be seeing a lot of. So I would be in favor of this because I think that's going to be the new normal.
And Patrick, the obvious question is this in Cathedral City?
It is not.
Because it's Cathedral City.
That was my first thought too, but no, they're
Good catch.
My only reservation with it, well, twofold. So one was, I don't know that these are really Energy Star rated.
Oh yeah, they are. They're 18 SEER. They're super efficient.
Okay.
You can't buy an 18 SEER.
Okay.
So it's a heat pump for a regular one there. That's why they're so popular in Asia and Europe. Okay.
The one that he is proposing is 19 SEER.
Right. Which is the code minimum for split system AC is 14 SEER. So 19 is better.
Okay.
By 5.
Okay. All right. So I will let him know that that's approved.
So are we paying the whole thing or just for a part of it?
The whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, Carl, do you have a question? No. Okay. Carl, is your hand up? Carl? Hello?
That might be a video, a picture. He said he was going to step out.
Oh, right. Okay.
He's probably just on another screen doing that vote. He said he.
Got it. Okay. All right. And then let me just check the list because we did have a few come in over the weekend. So the other one I was super excited about is that somebody is expanding their recycling and trash enclosure to accommodate more recycling. So I was very excited to support that. And then we also had a request for another hot water heater that was also electric hot water heater. So I'm just going to go back to them about that. And then another one for LED lighting switch for their safety lighting around their property. So we have that. And then also excited to report reusable foodware at Chill Bar. So they're going to move to reusable utensils and foodware for their food serving. So you see that.
That's significant because that's really where this project got started.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Glad to see that. So, all right. So I will follow up on those couple of items and I'll go back to the other folks about their projects or their proposals. Oh, and then the other one that was kind of exciting too was the folks that run the escape room Palm Springs up on the north end. They use a lot of flashlights and batteries. And so they are going to switch over to all rechargeable batteries. So they're going to basically eliminate their disposable battery waste, which is awesome. So anyway, so that's another cool project. All right. So I think that's all I had. And I'll follow up with these folks. And what I will do is I will, again, if there are some questionable items, I'll either send them around or bring them up at the next meeting so that I can share them with you guys and we can talk about them. And then the last thing was that we're clearly outpacing, sustainability funds are clearly outpacing the recycling projects. So what we may do is kind of see how things go this month and into next month, and then maybe send out a new round of invites and requests and see if we can boost some activity in certain areas that aren't getting much attention, like the reusable foodware and other things. So anyway, so we'll see what we do on that front. So, all right, any other questions about that?
Patrick, I assume no application so far from the home energy assessment rebate?
No, and I even reached out to somebody on Nextdoor or Facebook that had posted something about an home energy audit. So no, I haven't gotten any requests yet.
Okay, we'll talk about when I do the DCA report, but I'll follow up on that. And then I have a call into those folks who contacted you from IntelliHome. I haven't heard back from them, but I'll follow up so that I'll hopefully have something to report at the in time for the committee meeting.
Okay.
I tried reaching them this afternoon. I didn't hear back from them.
Great. Lonnie.
Quick question. So David, this is not on the agenda, but if you come up with any cool tips about how to turn in your Prius, I know you don't have a Prius, but to an electric vehicle, now that the rebates are going to be coming out, if you start hearing more about it in your area of expertise, would you mind passing some of that information along?
Okay.
Curious.
I'm following all the electric vehicle materials. The Energy Commission is doing a lot on that. But yeah, I do have a hybrid, and I'll let you know if I hear anything about that.
Well, what I get is Southern California Edison, and it's not very helpful in those terms, is it?
Okay, all right, I'll monitor the Energy Commission proceedings on EVs, because there'll be a lot more coming through.
Super.
All right.
That was a very interesting discussion on the scholarship program. The next item, new business, we have none. So we'll move to subcommittee and commissioner reports. And the first one is Standing Subcommittee on Solar and Green Building.
Okay, I'll try to make this quick. First, as Patrick mentioned, we have the EV charging ordinance implementing AB 1236. So that passed in council on second reading last Thursday. And then Patrick, I worked with Patrick. I've done an update on the website material that the city is required to post, just to make sure that that reflects best practice. So Patrick, you can report back on those discussions when we get to the committee in 2 weeks. Well, I probably should have been doing other things. I thought, given the fact that I've been spending a lot of time watching all of these Energy Commission webinars, that I would try to distill that for you on the commission and also for staff. And I sent it all the DCE. So you have my update on some of the various proposals that the Energy Commission is working on as they go through the various workshops to get to the 22 energy code and then reach codes. The Energy Commission, as I said, will adopt the 22 code this summer. There's another workshop on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, that I will be attending. And then also there are 5 more reach codes there. So, and in particular, there's one from Chula Vista that, Patrick, if we ever get to council, I think this one I think is a really good model because it's focused on energy efficiency upgrades for remodels. And I think that's always kind of where we really should be focusing on if we ever do a reach code. I think helping people that if they're going to do a major renovation, that they do some energy efficiency upgrades at the time of that major renovation, particularly for a mid-century modern house from 50s and 60s that really doesn't have any insulation and other things. I think that's where we get the most bang from the buck. And that's also cost effectiveness I'll be getting from the web tool that I've been developing, because I know they worked a lot with the Chula Vista folks. So that one in particular is in my webinar, and it's kind of that topic is referred to in the draft staff report that I was working on. The other thing, and Commissioner Baker is aware of this, there's cap and trade money, substantial amount of cap and trade money available for affordable housing projects. And now we're lucky between the one that the DAP and Commissioner Baker is directly working on, and also DAP is involved in the West Hollywood community housing that the council approved last Thursday. So depending on timing and also income eligibility, one and maybe both of those projects could be eligible for gap and trade funds. That if you go to an all electric building, there's going to be, a substantial amount of money that'll be available. So I'm following that. The Energy Commission will have probably in the next month or so more details as they move to launch in Q2. But that will be, a substantial amount of funds that could be available for those 2 projects. So that's basically what I'll be focusing on, more things on the when we get to the committee. And once again, I'll be working with Patrick and hopefully with staff for the downtown project to make sure that they follow the green building requirements, because that's a big thing. So that's it for energy and green building. Yeah.
Yes, Carl, I just wanted to thank Commissioner Friedman for pointing out the ability of these benefits for both DAP and the Agave Palm Springs, which will be located on Stevens and Palm Canyon. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Friedman. Now we'll move on to Subcommittee on Waste Reduction.
So I just had a few comments on the report that you've got. I wanted to mention that I am meeting with Palm Springs Disposal starting tomorrow. We're kicking off our kind of discussion process regarding SB 1383. And what we're planning to do is go through the various requirements and identify the different things that Palm Springs Disposal is going to need to do and that the city is going to need to do moving forward so that they can get back to us on rate implications and we can assess our own internal needs as a result of that, those requirements. So that process is kicking off. And so I'm hopeful that we can get through that in early February so that they can start getting back to us with some cost estimates and things like that, because we've got to get something to council for approval with regard to a new franchise agreement before the end of the summer. So we want to make sure that we get that in place in plenty of time for them to purchase new equipment or hire new people, get new trucks, whatever it may be. And the most important thing from our perspective is trying to make sure that we understand what all new requirements the city is going to have to do so that we can accommodate that in the form of new staffing or consulting fees or whatever it may be. So we're going to be hard at work on that. I did want to share with folks, we did have further discussions about that downtown trash cans and had a good conversation with the subcommittee about some signage. And I did include an example in our handout. Where'd it go? Sorry. Oh, there it is. All right, sorry. So we did talk about this, and as you might recall, when we were talking about the audit itself, we were realizing that people kind of knew what to put into the recycling bin, but they didn't know what not to put into the recycling bin. So we saw a lot of cups and containers, food containers that were in there. And so we talked about modifying the original signage design that we had to include more upfront the things that people should not put into the containers. So we were talking about this at our meeting. And so just wanted to share with you guys kind of what we were working through. And these are new pictures. I researched some new pictures based on the feedback from the subcommittee meeting. So these are a new paper, ugly, dirty cup, and a new the same plastic cup that we saw, and then a new food container that has more obviously food in it. So, so we can talk more about that at our next meeting. But anyway, that's the direction that we're moving in.
Patrick, it's Carl F. Because should we, instead of it's just saying paper cups, should we also put like / coffee cups? So I think the majority of them are like Starbucks cups that I think people just intrinsically think they can recycle, even though they're
we could put paper / coffee or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Really great, Patrick. I love these new photos. The food and foodware is nice and dirty now.
Yep. The cup itself is actually a 3D model of a cup that you can purchase. So anyway, but I thought that was kind of cool. But no, it's a great picture. So so I think that'll work out really well for us. So you just need to finalize those. All right. So I think that was covered there. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is next month, Commissioner Miller and I are working on a little bit of an analytical roadmap for better understanding the analyses that we need to do for the wastewater treatment plant and kind of understanding what we can process there, what we might want to process there, what that looks like in terms of anaerobic digestion and flare gas and treatment and gas use. So anyway, so we have a number of things to investigate. And so we're putting together a little roadmap for ourselves and for the city to figure out what all data needs to be gathered and what questions need to be answered so that we can move that process forward. So more on that next month. And then the last thing was I haven't heard anything more on the community composting grant that was applied for by some of our community members. So when I hear about that, I will share that with you guys too. All right, that's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. The next is Standing Subcommittee on World Environment Day.
Well, I sent Patrick a flyer for the contest. We had previously discussed our commission being the sponsor solely for like a literary art contest. It seems too complicated to, separate it out. And so what we would like to do is just have everyone contribute, all the sponsors, and this is our draft, but I think if you guys think it looks good as well, and if you agree to this, then what we'd like to do is just have it be all of the sponsors sponsoring all 3 of the categories. So we are planning to make videos to kind of explain the guidelines of how to do these different categories. So the visual art is what we've always had, the 2D or 3-dimensional art. The writing, we had discussed having it be 4th through 12th grade and having adults. We want to open it up for the younger children as well. So we put essay or creative writing. And then the video, it can be spoken word, a public service announcement, or some kind of music. So there's lots of opportunities for creativity and critical thinking. It's always been my main goal is to, have kids specifically, I mean, adults, it's great, but to be thinking critically and have a creative outlet. So I would invite us if there's willingness to increase our sponsorship by $250 and offer $1,000. The Pony Barnes Foundation is offering $2,000 in prizes. The Environmental Education Collaborative is willing to, probably sponsor whatever we don't want to pick up, but we have $4,200 of prizes. So it's quite a bit more than we've ever offered before. Because it's a digital contest, we're hoping to get a lot more submissions this year, and there's just a lot more opportunity. So there will be a top prize for each age group. So it'll be pre-kindergarten and the transitional kindergarten, it's called TK. That'll be one category, and then kindergarten through 12th, and then we'll have a special needs category as well, and adults. And so there will be a $50 prize in each one of those for each 3 of these categories of submissions. And then we'll group, it will be pre-K through kindergarten, and then grades 1 through 3, grades 4 through 6, grades 7 through 9, grades 10 through 12, and then adults. There will be a $100 prize for the top in each of those categories. So increasing the prizes, I think hopefully will inspire a little bit more participation. This will be presented in a variety of ways. So we have the Environmental Education Collaborative Annual Symposium coming up at the end of February. So it's also going to be a digital video. It'll be like going into a conference, the way that it's run. And, we're going to have this flyer presented many times, as well as emailed to every participant. And then we also have the Youth Climate Summit, which is happening, I think, the first week of March. I have to check on the date. So this is also where we're going to be promoting this a lot. And then, you know, we have both county offices of education that will send it out to all the teachers. Well, at least you know, they always send it to the science teachers and the art teachers. And we'll see if, you know, maybe some of the digital, you know, I know that there's different, especially at the high schools, they have other classes that work with digital media arts and things. So if you guys are willing to increase it, I think it would be a nice gesture to just be a little bit more balanced in the offerings than the collaborative would put in 1,200 if we put in 1,000, and the Pony Barnes Foundation is putting in the 2,000. And Action Driven Inquiry is Mary, who she is the co-chair for the collaborative, and so she donates all of her time to, you know, doing flyers and whatnot. So we worked on this flyer today, but she's doing most of the work, and she's very computer savvy. So so that's a in-kind donation. Any thoughts, or do you have any questions for me?
Question is, will this flyer also be in Spanish, because this is
Yes.
paper application, but will the flyer fully be done in Spanish as well?
Yes, and also these, so this PDF, these are actually live links.
Okay.
So when it's emailed out, it takes you right to the digital application. It's super user friendly. And then we'll have the paper applications both in English and Spanish.
Okay, and the flyer will link to the Spanish. Well, there'll be a Spanish version, and then the link will be the Spanish to digital application. Is that how it will work?
I think we had both last year. I think the digital application was in both languages.
Okay.
But we'll definitely have the paper ones also in both English and Spanish. So that's being worked on right now. I only have the English one to show you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So is it one prize for visual, one prize for writing, one prize for video?
For each of the
Yeah.
age groups, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Jennifer, a quick question. Is there going to be I'm sorry if I missed this. Is there going to be like a virtual online presentation of awards, kind of like in person, or is it just all sort of virtual?
What we would like to do, and that's something I wanted to speak with you all about as well, but we would like to do, you know, an award ceremony on World Environment Day, which turns out to be a Saturday. It would be a perfect time to, of course, have an in-person gathering, but I don't think we're going to be there yet with the pandemic. So it would be nice, you know, we will do something presenting the awards, you know, a virtual award ceremony. And if we want to do anything else for World Environment Day, that's, you know, something that we could also perhaps think about in the next 5 months. But yeah, so the awards will be announced that day. We have the submissions due about 2 weeks before, and that will also, you know, all the commissioners, if you're interested in being judges, we'll probably be doing like a Zoom to go through the visual art and the videos. And then with the writing, you know, if that's something that's, you know, we can mail out those pieces, you know, to be looked at individually. So when we get closer, you know, I'll invite you again, but maybe you want to think about that. And Roy, did you ever hear back from that environmental justice group?
No, I didn't. In fact, I resent the request about 2 weeks ago, and I did not hear back from them.
Well, our the annual symposium this year for the EEC, one of the strands is justice. So possibly we'll encounter, you know, other people that are interested in that as well if we don't hear back from them. So that will be happening at the end of next month, at the end of February. So we'll still have a few months you know, if we meet anyone that could possibly provide support in that way, that may be an option too.
Good.
Question.
Yes.
So Patrick, how is our budget for the year coming along now? I mean, where are we money wise?
We're still in good shape. I mean, we would have plenty of money to fund $1,000 for this if we wanted to do that.
How about 1,200?
1,200, we could do 1,200 too.
I would like to move that the Sustainability Commission of Palm Springs donate 1,200 to this project on air and justice.
So is that increasing from 750, which we approved the last time, to 1,200?
It is. Thanks, Roy.
Welcome. Is there a second?
I second.
Rob, thank you. Is there any discussion?
So I don't necessarily have a comment on that. I had kind of a related comment, but I was asked recently to be the mentor for a school in Indio for a green building program that they have this year. And I cannot tell you how excited the teachers were to dive into environmental and sustainability topics with their kids. And these are 3rd and 4th graders. So anyway, but I just feel like this kind of work is really important. And I think we don't quite realize how important it is, especially for folks that are student age.
That's great.
That's great. And please, you know, send this personally to your contacts, Patrick, because, you know, I think all of us have contacts and it's great when the county offices send them out, but I don't know, everyone gets busy with their inboxes filling up and they might miss it or not realize what it is. And so I think making that personal connection, it's great. We can hopefully increase, you know, especially that's great that it's down valley. I think, you know, reaching out to the eastern cities.
Yeah, what was interesting about them in particular is most of their kids are low income, lots of Spanish speaking, native Spanish speaking, and lots of foster kids, lots of, you know, a lot of challenging situations, I think.
I love that. I have to say this because I was really shocked myself, but you know, I'm in this master's program right now. And so I'm connecting a lot with administrators from Palm Springs Unified. I had no idea. My daughter went through this whole school system. Every single school in Palm Springs Unified is a Title I school, even in the most affluent area. So that was a huge eye opener for me. So I just wanted to share that. So yes, Down Valley probably is even more poverty stricken in some ways, but you know, Palm Springs was, I don't know, it's pretty low on the list, you know, of being, you know, high poverty. So, well, thank you all. This is great. Do you like the flyer? Does it look good?
It looks great.
It looks
I
nice.
love the colors. I think it looks really nice. And I love how, you know, even, you know, this landscape, probably LA, it's so beautiful. Even, I mean, not realizing, oh, it's pollution, disgusting, right? But it's still attractive and beautiful. And, you know, there's so many, I love the air and justice. I hope somebody takes on the Salton Sea. So, you know, that's something that we can kind of nudge our locals to look at. You know, I think it's really good for our kids to understand, you know, that we don't have to leave our backyard to have, you know, huge environmental problems, and environmental justice is right here. So
yeah, Commissioner Futterman, you might want to liaise with the folks from Alianza in Coachella. I can put you in touch with Barrett Newkirk. particularly if we don't hear from the other folks. And Sylvia Paz, I would sort of, I think Sylvia Paz is the executive director of Alianza. She could be a good, she would be a good judge for particularly for the writing. So Patrick, I can send you the contact details for Barrett Newkirk, who was the Desert Sun reporter. And now he's communication director for Alianza. You may have seen something in the paper the other day. They had a Dios de los Reyes sort of drive-through that was in the paper the other day. And they do a lot of work with younger folks on these issues, particularly concerning the Salton Sea.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the connection.
Oh, well,
Patrick, I'll send that to you.
I have another connection for you, Commissioner Futterman. I may be able to get, at the very least, Commissioner, I get these titles, Commissioner Perez as a county supervisor, but probably because this is very close to our Congressman, Raul Ruiz, he might be able to get a resolution or something in writing for the winter as well.
Fantastic. That's great. That's all wonderful.
So
You're all connected.
that's
Thank you.
a motion on the table to increase our donation to $1,200, and we have a second. So we need to vote before we move on to the next subject.
That's right.
There's no more discussion. All in favor of increasing to $1,200, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes. That's great. Thank you. Next is Ad Hoc Subcommittee on Walkability and Pedestrian Planning.
So just a quick update, the next meeting of the Community Advisory Committee is tomorrow. Primary focus of that is kind of updating them on the projects that are being submitted through the website that they set up. And also to talk a little bit more about additional outreach and the walk audits that we're going to do virtually. So we're going to kind of zoom in on an area and have people talk about the different challenges that are in that area and that kind of thing. So those are really the next steps for that project. And again, I'll keep you guys posted as there's info to share. And I think that's pretty much all there is on that front. The question, I did get a question at the 1 PS meeting about whether or not we were coordinating with some of the other project discussions that are happening, like the one on South Palm Canyon to do improvements down there. And we're trying to not reinvent the wheel with this and make sure that we're getting information on the various projects that are happening. So that's it.
Thank you. The next is Ad Hoc Subcommittee on Bicycle Routes and Cycling.
Patrick, did we have a note out to Lisa about getting together, or I forgot where we left off on that?
So we were gonna circle back on that, and so I just need to do that. So
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned to her, I said that you'd be getting in touch with her or something like that in my last email, but that was a while ago, and I think she's been pretty busy with pedestrian safety issues too. So,
right.
well, let me know if you hear anything. And then the other thing is, I did relay Council Member Wood's idea about a two-way protected bike lane on Palm Canyon. I sent that out to the Bicycle Subcommittee group, which was Vic Yapella, Brett Klein, and Robin Abrahams. And I just sent that out yesterday. So I've gotten some initial support, but I'll let you know at the next meeting what they think about that or what we might do. All right. That's it.
And also, Commissioner Flanagan, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton spoke at our neighborhood organization Zoom meeting on Saturday morning, and she also mentioned that as part of and I think Patrick, you had mentioned this, as part of the various traffic calming in South Palm Springs along Toledo and Laverne and also South Palm Canyon there'll be a bunch of stoplights and crosswalks that are being added. I believe that's on council agenda for the 28th, at least according to Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
We talked about that with her back in December, so I think that they were trying to move that forward.
In the Code Enforcement Public Works Committee meeting this month, engineering, Francisco gave more detail about those 4 locations and what's going there or what's planned to go there.
I also heard they're talking about putting a crosswalk in at Laverne and a stop sign. I don't know if that's Lisa or if that came up.
That was one of the, I believe that's among the proposals, since there's basically currently no safe way to cross that street for, a mile and a half essentially. And
Okay.
because of all the bikers, particularly because of all the bikers coming down to, to go all the way into the Indian Canyons, that's one of the reasons why that's being looked at. It was one of the original proposals from several years ago, and there was some community opposition, so it got dropped. But I think Chair Clark, you may remember those discussions from a couple of years ago. So it looks like it's coming back.
Okay, thank you. The next is Ad Hoc Subcommittee on Night Sky.
Okay, just a couple of quick things. Patrick, I wanted to check with you on whether the letter that hopefully got submitted to the city about enforcing its own guidelines got submitted, and have you had any feedback on it?
It did get submitted and they said they would investigate. I have not heard.
Very good. And in the background, I'm still working on working up a position paper from the commission that'll be a stepping stone, hopefully, to a staff report that'll combine the existing outdoor lighting guidelines with ordinances that have been passed in other cities like Tucson. So still in work.
Thank you, Rob. The next is Ad Hoc Subcommittee on Strategic Planning and General Plan Update.
So I have no updates. We did not meet since the last meeting, but I do plan to move that forward later this month. So,
great, thank you. The next is Water Conservation.
Couple of quick items from the DWA board meeting this morning, and then last 2 weeks ago. DWA board extended its COVID fee waivers for another 2 months. At the meeting 2 weeks ago, I provided an update on the airport demonstration garden. Thank board and staff for their participation in the project. The Whitewater Hydro Plant, which is basically gets the water coming down from the Colorado River Aqueduct, generated nearly 2 million kilowatt hours of electricity last year, which was sold to SCE. So that's some more green energy from our area. And then finally, the water conservation figures, there was a 6% reduction in December from the 2013 baseline. They are working on sort of, adjusting some of the figures, but now that they're based on production as opposed to consumption, it looks like the reductions are less than they were before. So we'll see how that continues into the year. So those are the sort of main action items and reporting items from DWI.
Thank you, David. The next is Wellness.
Hi, we met with the representative from Human Rights Commission regarding the smoking ordinance, and we came to a conclusion and have a combined resolution that I just have to sit down and go finish my red line, and hopefully my goal is to have it for next month's meeting.
So we'll plan on having that in the agenda then. Yeah. Thanks, Carl.
You're welcome.
And finally, Desert Community Energy.
Okay, big news from the board meeting, DC board meeting last month. They approved contracts for 3 wind projects within the Palm Springs city limits near the freeway. There will be a signing ceremony and press release to publicize the contracts and particularly the local jobs that they will create. So finally, we'll be getting some power into Palm Springs from those windmills. And DC is also negotiating a long-term solar contract, which is expected to come before the DC board next month. And then the Community Advisory Committee for Commissioner Baker, Commissioner Miller. We will be meeting next month to continue our discussions of energy conservation incentives. And Patrick, this is where I'll make sure that we get some publicity for the home energy assessment rebate. And then we'll also be working with Grid Alternatives to publicize is programmed to install solar panels on affordable housing units. And I know, Patrick, you've been involved in trying to get letters to the folks in those housing projects who would be eligible, because there are some use and lose funds. I think for a program from the Energy Commission that sunsets later this year. So we want to make sure that anybody who's eligible can potentially benefit from those or that program. And that's it for DCE. I will have more at our next meeting because the DC agenda will have been set for the CAC and the board as well.
Thank you, David. So that concludes our subcommittee and commissioner reports, and the final item on the agenda is commissioner comments and upcoming agenda. So as we always do, we'll do the roster. Have a comment or something for an upcoming agenda, please bring it up and try to keep it to a minute. Thank you. So Commissioner McCann, Vice Chair McCann.
No comment.
Okay. Commissioner Baker.
No comment.
Commissioner Flanagan.
None for me, thank you.
Commissioner Friedman.
No comment, thank you.
Commissioner Futterman.
No comment.
Commissioner Gauthier.
No comment.
Commissioner Miller.
I have a question, and I tried to slip it in there on the water conservation. Since it looks like we're definitely already well on the way to a drought year, and I think we're going to get, everyone is predicting a lot more drought years ahead. I was looking at the desert water bill, and it used to be at the beginning of the drought when we were trying to get people on board in the gray area, when they converted the bill so that you could actually know what it meant and in terms of your own water usage. Your bill this month was compared with not the similar customer, but what your bill was in 2013. You probably will remember that. Roy, do you remember when you got your water bill and your water usage was either higher or lower than what your bill was in 2013? And that's how they made your comparison. Remember that? Well, now for quite some time now, they've been going on with you used about as much as similar customers, or about as much, or you used more than similar customers. So now we're being compared with similar customers. Well, we're not in a drought quite yet, but that is going to become an item that's very important to a lot of us. And I was wondering, David, do you know what it means now? We're no longer in the compared with our household in 2013, but compared with similar customers. Do you know what in reference that is?
Yeah, I mean, I have it use more than similar customers. I'll follow up with Ashley's on maternity leave, but so she and Vicky are there, so I'll follow with that. I think it's based on the way the gas company does it for people with similar size sort of square feet, but I'll follow up on that. I'll report back at the next meeting. So thank you for that. As I said, because the targets are kind of moving, I think that's why they changed it. But I can't specifically. You've raised a very good question. I'm just looking at my bill, who are the similar customers, and to see how that is. And also sort of, I know, unfortunately, from personal experience, because I have a huge leak, that I would encourage people with irrigation systems to get the flume leak detection, which is one of the projects that DWA does offer. You can attach that to your water meter, and I wish that I had done that several months ago. DWA did mention it at one of their webinars, I think in November, and I am now dealing with a large and expensive leak. So that's one of the ways that people can reduce water, is to get that get a leak detector. It's with a discount $149.
Well, I hope you don't have to bother Ashley on this. Vicky will
Yeah,
Sure.
no, Vicky's around. I'll check with Vicky. I'll email Vicky, and so she on this.
Okay.
Hey,
great.
Lonnie,
Thanks so
can
much.
I briefly chime in? So we do, this is called bill comparison. So I ran bill comparison programs for the entire state of Hawaii. And you look at similar usage and size and area and geography and things like that. And you compare to neighbors, and there's a ton of research that show that people gauge their usage based on other people. And there's a big impact on people reducing when they see that they're out of line. We get complaints about people that have, teenage daughters that take long showers, stuff like that. But it's a well-proven mechanism for saving energy. So they probably switched to that technique, because it's hard to compare to last year, because you might have had a different lawn or different pool or different things going on. But it's very popular in the energy business.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's interesting, but we did that for 5 years and compared
Yeah.
to year 2013, and people really dropped. But now we're in this, no person's world. So I think it is good to know who this similar customer is.
All right, I will follow up with DWA staff and report back at the next commission meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Miller, for raising that.
Super, thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Lonnie, for that comment. So now we're at the point of adjourning. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, February 16th at 5:30 p.m., most likely on Zoom again. So is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
That's
Second.
right.
Second.
Second was Carl. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Bye.
And nobody's opposed. So thank you very much for a very productive meeting.
Thank you, Roy.
Patrick wants to stay on. I don't think he wants to go yet.
That's right. I'm gonna stay here all night.
Until you finish your laundry.
Right.
Until the laundry's done.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Bye
everybody.
now.
Bye.